in terms of definition, you look at the three words and you go covert, which means hidden, cunning, deceitful, deliberate, stealth. It's basically consciously hidden, knowingly, willfully hidden. Emotional, talking of our feelings, all the different senses that you get from your feelings and things. And then, of course, incest, which is relations between DNA compatible people, family members. Incest is a very nasty word. It's a very horrible word. It's a very serious word. It's a word that really makes you uncomfortable. It's a serious, very serious word, and very consequential word, the word incest, and it's a very sobering word. So covert emotional incest is feelings that are hidden, that are being shared amongst family members that shouldn't be. Feelings, hidden feelings. Feelings that are being shared in a hidden way that are not to be shared amongst family members. I can remember I was in a relationship with a lady, a lovely lady, with a son, good boy he was. I share this story a lot, but I need to because it's real. And the background was negligence, affectionate negligence on behalf of the husband, but it was probably due to the resentments of the wife. A lot of these women will blame their husbands for this, that, and all the other, but they don't consider the resentments and the bitternesses that they pose towards or imposed on their husband or partner. Well, what happens is when the husband and the wife or the partners emotionally beguile one another, or emotionally begrudge one another, or emotionally neglect one another and intimately neglect one another. A common reaction to that, if an affair doesn't start with an outsider altogether, is to emotionally draw at an adult level upon one of the children. This is called covert emotional incest. And there's many different levels of this, and there's many ways in which this can manifest. From very subtle to extraordinarily extreme. So I met this lady, lovely lady. She had a son living with her. Great boy. He was trying to find his way through the separation of his parents. Very sad what happens to these children when parents separate. They're absolutely catastrophic, and sometimes not repairable. So let's see if we can give you the landscape. So, there you go, we'll give you a bit of landscape. Australian landscape. Let's see if we can get over here. Turn that around a bit. anyway, so this lady was living with her son, and I began a relationship with her. I moved in with her, and her son didn't take too kindly to that, but he had to accept it because mothers will do what they want to do, particularly initially, despite what anybody else thinks. They can be very selfish at the start of a relationship. Very selfish. I've seen some extraordinary selfishness on behalf of these single mothers to get their needs met. Extraordinary selfishness. Well, one thing led to another, and I moved in. I didn't move in, I began to stay there overnight with this lady, and it was affectionate. And one night we were in bed, going about our business, and the door cracked open in the middle of the night, about 1 o'clock in the morning, and it was the son. Well, I thought that he must have wanted to. I thought he was must be wanting to ask his mother something. So I was just lying there thinking, well, everything will be all right. He just wants to ask his mum something. And lo and behold, to my shock and to my bewilderment, this 6'4", 16-year-old boy jumps into bed with us. He hopped into bed next to his mother. Now, this isn't a lie, this is the truth. And I'm not judging these people, I'm just trying to share with you what happened and how I had to try and deal with it. So this young boy, 16-year-old boy, 6'4", has just hopped into bed with me and his mother. He was next to his mother. Now, I didn't think that he would stay there. I didn't think that this was something that was going to go through the whole night. But he'd hopped in and settled in next to his mum. I lasted about 10 minutes and I left. And I won't go into the details of all that. Now, we've got to stop and ask ourselves, how can covert emotional incest get to that point where the mother is in a new relationship with another man and trying her best to make that work? She wants to be loved. But now she's got her son, good boy, in bed with her and the partner. This is how deep covert emotional incest can go. This is how far it can go. How do you unravel that kind of enmeshment, that kind of bond between a mother and a son? How do you undo that? Well, the reality is you can't. That's how deep covert emotional incest can go. Well, this is the fruit of the breakdown in the marriage. The mother has decided that she needs a form of masculinity, emotional contact, and she's chosen the son to do that. She's chosen to use the son as a way of accomplishing that. The problem with that was, and this is what they don't realise, these mothers, that when a partner comes along, the child's not going to understand why their emotional supply, adult emotional supply, from the mother is now not there, because the mother's now operating in a proper relationship, adult to adult, and the child's left standing on the sideline going, well, what happened to me? How has this happened to me? Why has this happened to me? And the unfortunate part of this is that the mother doesn't know. I've watched these women try and figure out, how am I going to unravel this? Look what I've done. Whoops. How am I going to unravel what I've done? And they can't, because they've given the child a formation, because covert emotional incest is a formation between the adult and the child. They've given this child now a inherited, formated position of authority as an adult in her life. Can you see what I'm saying? The child's been set up as a partner, not as a child. This passes out of the realm of maternal bonding and brings a child into a relationship form of bonding outside that of mother to child or parent to child. This can happen with fathers and daughters. They form a relationship that goes beyond the boundaries of maternal. And these bonds are very dangerous and very hard to untie. So now we've got a 16-year-old, 6'4" boy in bed with his mother and her boyfriend. Now that's an extreme case. And I'm not being judgmental, I'm just bringing it to light because it was a real life example. This is how far these parents will let these ill-begotten relationships go. Now, I don't know if he was sleeping with his mother of a night or what was going on before I come along, and to be honest, I really had no time to bother wondering either. But covert emotional incest is like concrete. Once it's formed, once it's set, it takes I have never seen a case of covert emotional incest reversed. I've never seen it reversed. One way or another, it will destroy the partnership that the parent forms with somebody outside the family that's not of the DNA. And the unfair part is it's very difficult for these young people to understand what's happened to them, because it's a part of how they've been formed. How could I have had that bond with my parent and now there is no bond at all in terms of partnership? When a child's been given an exalted position of over and above the maternal boundaries of a relationship, parent to child, then they ain't going to let that go. They ain't going to let that go because it's a defilement. It's become part of their personality and character and core understanding. This is the danger. of covert emotional incest. And what you'll find is, and this is the point of this talk, when you're speaking with these women or these men, they'll tell you their story about how it all went wrong and what happened with the marriage and blah, 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 blah. What they don't tell you is their part in, because everybody plays a part in the demise of a relationship. So when you meet somebody, it's probably better not to worry about what's happened in their past, except for the fact that trying to work out what their level of resolve was, what their attempted level of resolve was before the previous relationship collapsed. Because everything you do in a relationship will be reduced to the lowest level of resolve. The higher level of resolve will not, well, at the start they'll normally go with the high level of resolve, but over time it disintegrates down to having to be resolved at the weaker person's level. Because as a relationship wears on, the weaker person will fatigue and fall back into their level of resolve, and therefore the person with the healthier level of resolve will have to come back to meet that person at their level, or they'll have to leave them behind, because the weaker person's level of resolve will not be able to cope with the more mature person's or more experienced person's level of resolve. So everything will be, as the relationship goes on, it has to come back down to, for it to last, the weaker person's level of resolve. And I hope that makes sense, because the weaker person's level of resolve will be as high as the resolve in the partnership will be able to go without conflict. Now, this takes an extraordinary level of wisdom on the part of the person who is able to bring resolve through a deeper level of understanding and knowledge and experience, etc. What we find is, when resolve starts to fail, hello, she's 90, the poor old soul. Wow. What we find is that a lot of relationships dissolve because of the different levels of resolve that manifest as the relationship wears on. So, covert emotional incest, through its formation out of the failure of the relationship between the two adults. Hi Therese, how are you? Could I ask where you're from, Therese, if that's okay? You need to understand what, without being nosy or intrusive, what the levels of resolve were for that person and in that person in their previous relationship. Because if covert emotional incest is happening between the parent and the child, Ontario, wow, that's in America. I'm going to show you some scenery of Nelson's Bay in New South Wales, Australia. We're coming in, it's a beautiful place. We're just coming through the bushland leading up to it. I hope you enjoy some of the scenery. It's not all that scenic. That's a RAF base there. Those signs are for the RAF base where the Royal Australian Air Force trains out of Newcastle. So we're heading into a beautiful part of the world called Nelson's Bay in New South Wales, Australia. And what you'll see in front of me is my son's business. He runs a bungee jumping and an amusement thing. You'll see it on the back of that trailer. You can't see it very clearly. And we're going to set that up for him in this holiday destination called Nelson's Bay. It's all snow white here. Well, we could be heading up to 40 degrees Celsius over the next couple of days, Therese. 40 degrees Celsius. And that's getting pretty hot. Australia's a funny place, you know. It's on the one hand it's very modern, but on the other hand it's only 200 years old. It's an amazing country. There's never a dull moment, I can tell you that. Hopefully I'll be able to show you some real live kangaroos. We're coming into kangaroo and koala land now, and if I can I'll stop if I have to show you a real live kangaroo. Now, so let's get back to the subject. So what will happen with covert emotional incest is the relationship between the parent and the child will dissolve, and then what the problem is, as that parent moves on, you'll find that whilst the partner might fall away, the previous husband or partner, the children will still be in contact with that parent. And this is where the problems start, because covert emotional incest will come with it. Covert emotional incest follows along between the parent and the child. Now, this is my point about sabotage. Whilst the previous relationship might be dissolved and now you have come into a relationship with this person who has covert emotional incest active, what'll happen is, while you think the partner could have been a problem, and while you realise that children can be a problem for your relationship if you're not part of that original family, usually you get accepted relatively well at the start of one of these new relationships, but you'll find covert emotional incest will manifest. It will manifest as time wears on, and once it manifests, the sad part about it is usually you're in so deep, it's very hard to come out unscathed. Very hard to come out unscathed. Yeah, I'm out in the this is way out away from a lot of communication here, Therese. Anyway, so what I want to close with is this. Covert emotional incest will sabotage, however it can, the relationship for the parent or the child involved in that bond, because it'll oppose it, because it takes away the feed, the supply. An outsider, as much as the parent or the child wants a partner, the outsider will become a problem for the covert emotional incest, because it takes away the supply. And when that supply is threatened, that's when the defenses start, and the covert emotional incest will start to manifest and work against the new relationship. What happens is, that's where the sabotage comes in. The covert emotional incest starts to sabotage any promise of a healthy relationship if it's not recognized and dealt with. See, covert is what makes it difficult, because it doesn't want to be dealt with. It wants to hide and work its collusions out of sight. So I hope this helps. That's 25 minutes. Therese, I'll go off now. But I do wish you well in Ontario. Thank you for joining me. This is Dr. Jason W. Morrison, theologist, New South Wales, Australia. Oh, there's been a prang there. I can't show you it, but bye for now.